Hey Zwifters, I am Simon Schofield and this is episode 100 of the Zwiftcast. Well, they've been here since day one. The other two members of the Zwiftcast mini peloton, I haven't succeeded in dropping them yet. Actually, it's much more likely that in real life they'd drop me. Shane Miller and Nathan Guerra, g'day mate, and yo dude respectively. Shane, ever think we'd get to 100 not out?
This is a 100 episode, not a birthday episode. I was going to wear my birthday suit for this one, but I had to quickly put some clothes back on, and it was only the 100. It's been a while, hasn't it? Been a while. I'm glad we're here.
Yeah. Well, very good decision not to wear your birthday suit, mate. Nathan, 100, did you think we'd get there?
Well, 100... I don't know. I didn't know if we were going to get past the first one, to be honest. When we first got going, it was like, okay, what are we doing here? I'm not sure what's happening. But, I mean, I'm blown away that we've hit this 100th episode, and I'm super excited for this.
We are still here. So what do we have for you in episode 100? Well, inevitably, it's going to be a bit of a look back into the history of Zwift as catalogued on your favourite, our favourite podcast. I hope it's your favourite podcast too. And with a few handbrake turns, we'll also take in some of the usual fare, in other words, the latest happenings on our favourite cycling game. Let's start in the here and now. And sometime over the next few weeks, did somebody maybe possibly say October? Zwift is going to be rolling out something called Pack Dynamics 3. Now, this will in fact change eventually the entire Zwifting experience for every Zwifter. At the moment, there's quite a lot of lateral movement as your avatar swings side to side within a bunch. We're used to it now, but actually it's quite a jerky movement and it's not especially natural. That's not how cyclists in a bunch behave in real life. There are lots and lots of complicated reasons this happens, which needn't detain us here, but it's been on game creator John Mayfield's to fix list for a long, long time. And one of the very first visible fruits of John's role in the newish R&D department at Zwift is quite a big change to pack dynamics. Now, it must be said, this is in the early stages and still being tested. What you're seeing now is the very first test to involve non-Zwift HQ staff, and a rollout across the game is still some way off, at least weeks and maybe months. That said, the feedback from the very first test, mine included, was solidly positive. As you can see, the group looks much more cohesive. There's little, if any, of that very jerky side-to-side motion, and if you look carefully, watch this. If you advance through a group, other riders move so that gaps form. There's none of that weird riding through another rider thing going on. The same applies if you're slipping back through the group. Gaps open up. The combined effect is a much, much smoother experience and a much more natural look. It's more restful as a visual experience. The really interesting aspect is that this version of Pack Dynamics appears to mitigate the worst effects of sticky draft, where you get stuck on another rider's wheel when you want to get past. Again, there are reasons this exists in game, but on this test, many of the riders commented that the sticky draft was way less noticeable. If you now want to push on and get past, it's much easier to do so. Do you know, I honestly think this is a really, really big deal. And when it comes, it's going to change how we Zwift, eventually for all users. I'm very optimistic about this. Shane, do you share my general goodwill towards this incipient change?
100%. I've spoken about it before, that cyclists know what other cyclists look like. We are experts at that because we ride behind cyclists most of the time out on the road. And when we're not riding behind cyclists, we're watching cyclists on the television. We know we are experts in how things move, in a bunch between riders and when people drop off and how people work turns and things like that. We are the experts in that. If it doesn't look right, you'll notice it straight away. So anything Zwift can do to take that forward and bring the experience into what we expect to see is going to be a good thing. Why we're talking about this 6 years down the track, though, is a bit of a worry. I would have loved to have seen this a lot sooner, maybe 6 months into the Zwift journey, but there have been a lot of changes in regards to how riders are positioned for everybody else. I think previously they were doing client calculations, and like you could be riding on one side of a rider, and on their system you were riding on the other. It didn't really matter. But now we have steering. Now we need really accurate results in racing. They need to be sorted out. So I think that's all a part of that, sort of rolling into one. But what I see there looks really, really good. I can't wait to see it en masse. I want to see the Cocoa Bunch. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, there might be a lot of that. We could have had this 6 years ago during this episode, so brace yourself, viewers and listeners. Nathan, I mean, this could be completely revolutionary for racing because the whole draft thing is going to change. Positioning in a bunch, the way you change positioning in a bunch is going to change. And sitting on someone's wheel or not sitting on someone's wheel is going to change. And that will have a really, really big impact on racing.
Oh, it's a huge impact. I mean, just yesterday I was having a conversation with one of the Zwifters that I interact with like a ton. And we're talking about TTT, and just with Pack Dynamic 2, there was so much changes, like huge amounts of like pushing people off. Now with wanting to even have more interactivity, and this is what we've been talking about for a really long time, interactivity that is natural to cycling though, right? Like there's a lot of this, like, how do we gamify? Well, this is gamifying. This is actually bringing in a new variable that you have with the control of your avatar. And that little bit will actually change, because you think about the domino effect, the variables that you have that are happening between all of the different, all the avatars out there are going to really moment to moment change because of these pack dynamics. As you can see, the way that the avatars are trying to jostle around each other and actually make space for each other, that's cycling, right? And it's interactive cycling. So I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, me too. One of the first projects from the John Mayfield Research Lab, somewhere in the dungeon in Long Beach. Actually, it's probably not in the dungeon, but you know, it would be nice if it was. So we will say what we've probably said quite a lot during 100 episodes of Zwiftcast. Well done, John, but can you get on with it, please? Because this is going to be a big, big change. And it is going to be great to see it. Okay, let's start with the history thing, and let's go back. Let's go all the way back to episode 1.
Hi Zwifters, I'm Simon Schofield and this is the Zwiftcast.
Remember that reggae tune? We had that for a fair few episodes. So where were we in November 2015? Richmond had launched a few weeks before in September. October saw Zwift's workout mode launch, and right at the end of that month, after many weeks in free beta, Zwift started charging $10 a month. Compared to today, numbers on the platform were tiny, as Zwift CEO Eric Min related when he appeared on episode 1.
We hit, I will tell you that we hit almost 800 simultaneous users at the peak on Tuesday. So every day since we launched has been a record day for that day.
What do you think the maximum number of riders we will see on the platform at any one time will be this winter? What would be your guess?
If I were to guess, I would say by January you might see close to 2,000.
Well, we didn't play the peak Zwift game in those days, so I don't recall if Zwift ever hit Eric's prediction of 2,000 that year. But that's the background for the birth of the Zwiftcast. Episode 1 featured 2 voices which would become familiar.
Shane, it's been fantastic chatting to you. I hope we can make this a regular feature. It's great to hear from Zwift Australia.
No worries, Simon. I look forward to the future editions. There's a lot to talk about, and I'm sure we'll have many, many months of discussions in the future about where it's going and, where it's headed.
This is a strong group of riders today. A lot of the big hitters have shown up.
That was the fantastic Nathan Guerra with some of his inspired race commentary. We'll get Nathan on to the next episode of the Zwiftcast.
Maybe the listeners might just like to know a little bit about how we make the podcast. I mean, it's not fantastically interesting, to be honest, but, you know, a bit behind the scenes stuff we'll try for Zwiftcast 100. I mean, the big hassle, I suppose, for us is coordinating time zones. We are in probably the three worst places in the world for getting together: Australia, Europe, and the Midwest. I mean, the time zone divergences are quite big, and it does my head in every time I try to organise an episode. I have to go into an online calculator to work it out. I still haven't got used to it. But I mean, the upshot is that actually it's reasonably relaxed for me and Shane. And normally it's like 7 a.m. for me, which in winter is a bit kind of dark and cold, but it's okay. Normally it's kind of late afternoon, I think, for you, Shane. But Nathan, my friend, you consistently get the short straw. I mean, 1 a.m., which is the time we started today, is like relatively civilized for you. We have done it at 2 a.m. and even 3 a.m., but you always get the short straw. However, you are something of an owl rather than a lark. It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, all of my training has happened with many kids getting on the bike around 9 p.m., maybe 10 p.m., maybe even 11 p.m. So it was almost like we went from training to Zwiftcast. That's kind of like what ended up happening. So, and I've enjoyed it. And, tonight I actually went to sleep at 6 p.m. yesterday because I actually had an unusual day yesterday, and then woke up at 11:30 to get ready for this record, actually, in order to get prepared. So, but that's Zwift life for me, right? So the reality of ZRL starting tomorrow, yep. It's been the same thing because we've been covering a global community for so long. Mm-hmm. The race community, where Zwift Community Live came from, it's always been trying to hang out with everyone in all the time zones. Like, we're trying to figure out the same thing for ZRL right now. So that's just the nature of Zwift.
Yeah. I mean, you live in the future, Shane, but it's kind of always worked out on the Zwiftcast record, okay, I think, hasn't it for you?
Yeah, it's mid-afternoon, depending on what time Max has dinner, which is going to be any moment soon, so you might hear some clangs in the background. But just to throw another spanner in the works, it's daylight savings next week, I think, so we're going to be phase shifted an hour, and no one knows which way. It goes one direction, but we can never figure it out. One thing I've got to mention, though, is the weird locations we have recorded the Zwiftcast. Now, it's been dodgy hotel rooms in Vegas. It's been Simon in your car away from jackhammers. I've been in my top room. I'm in my little tiny small room down here. Nathan, you're in the basement somewhere. We can record this anywhere, and thanks to technology, it usually comes together pretty well. But yeah, it's been some strange locations.
That's a funny one, Simon. Remember we got kicked out of the hotel that one time when we were in the
we did. I remember we were in Long Beach actually, and we were doing it in a very attractive kind of atrium area. But I hadn't either sought or obtained permission to do a recording. And you know what people are like, as soon as they see a camera, it's like, what's this? What's that? What's that? And we did get kind of hustled out fairly quick smart by a very large man in a very smart suit. I seem to remember. But yeah, one way or another, we have always pretty much managed to get it done. Okay, let's get this out of the way nice and early.
Unlike my esteemed companions on the Zwiftcast, I famously do not have the Tron bike.
There it is, finally, the Tron bike. Well, officially the Zwift concept bike unlocked.
I didn't push the right buttons. Hell, maybe there was no Tron bike button when I started, a little before Shane and Nathan, just saying. And by the time I realised, well, it just seemed too late. But I would like to take this opportunity to prove that whilst climbing really isn't top of my I absolutely love this list, I have climbed some mountains. This has not stopped my beloved colleagues ribbing me and jipping me endlessly about my non-Tron status. It's okay. I've learned to live with it. Will I register ever? Nah. The moment has passed.
As Oscar Wilde said, there's one thing the worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about. So, the whole Tron bike thing, actually, I quite like it. And I think it's going to run for a while, isn't it? Yeah, Shane?
It will. It will continue on until one day you accidentally go for a climb up the Zwift or Mont Ventoux, and you've got that. They'll probably remove the challenge by the time you get around to doing it. But I'd love it if you accidentally got it one day, and then we'll have to find something else. I'm not sure what we can go Nathan on, or I'm not sure what you guys can jib me on. Don't know. But until you have that bike, it's going to be timed every Zwiftcast.
And Nathan, I would imagine, I don't know if you've done your stats recently, but you could have had 20 tron bikes, 50 tron bikes.
It makes me think of climbing the Alpe d'Huez when it first came out, because I did 27 climbs before I got the Mellensteins. 27. I got the masochist achievement and didn't get the Mellensteins. I've done a little bit of climbing, just a little bit, but my stats are a little down this year. I went outside and started racing pro a little bit again, and Tim just took off. Tim Searle just was like, is there any competition here anymore? No. So as far as stats go, we're not, I don't think I'm even in the top 10 anymore.
Side note on Tim's stats, I think he's going for 5,000 Ks this month. In the last 30 days rolling, Tim has done 4,753 kilometers. That's going to have to be a record. We'll get these Zwiftcast listen fact checkers on that one, but I ain't going anywhere near that record, so he's going to hold that for a long time. That's phenomenal riding from Tim.
Yeah, and Tim Searle is nothing if not, what should we say, consistent. He's a complete monster. I did have a ride with him once in real life, actually, and he tore my legs off. I mean, he just tore my legs off.
Yeah, that endurance hasn't slowed him down. No way. You do the Pac-Man rides on the hump day, 350 watts plus, holding on. You're like, aren't these long Ks meant to slow people down? Nope.
Yeah, he's a very, very strong guy, and proves that, Zwift is good for you. Zwift is very good for your outdoor fitness. Okay, well, before we launch into our review of stuff that's happened over 99 episodes of the Zwiftcast, let's just tackle something a little more current, one of those handbrake turns coming up. To much wailing and gnashing of teeth, Zwift has announced that juniors, that's riders under the age of 16, cannot join the Zwift Run Zwift Racing League. HQ is forced into reacting to this with a statement after the big fuss caused by a kind of out-of-the-blue change to the rule set for e-racing. Maybe it would have been better to get ahead of this, Zwift, by giving an explanation when you did it rather than after you did it. An explanation simultaneous with the rule change might have been good, but hey, they didn't. Anyway, you can understand the reaction, because who doesn't want to get kids more active more often? The Zwift mission. And a lot of kids were really, really enjoying that racing. Nathan, it's not really surprising that people were mad.
Well, there's the reality of this is the future of cycling. There's a lot around the world when it comes to growing cycling and the next generation. I mean, my own heart after a new generation of cycling, that's where vision cycling came from, so there's I can hear that and I understand that completely, the development of the sport, and a lot of places where people are like, hey, our sport just needs to grow, and wait, what are we doing here? So yeah, your knee-jerk reaction is, wait, why are you doing something against a good cause? We want to go toward good causes. This is good, and so you feel like someone is like just shooting down something everybody could root for.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's really good reasons for this, like really, really good reasons for this. So
there is, and let me just explain some of those, because we did. Well, all of us actually kind of reached out to HQ to say, hey guys, what's this all about? And it is probably best to make clear that this change doesn't apply to all junior racing on Zwift, but only the Zwift promoted and partnered series, especially, as Nathan said, the WTRL series. And the organisers of that phenomenally successful league, unfortunately, did cop for a lot of flack on this when the flag was flying. Now, as Zwift perhaps didn't do the best job of defending themselves on this, we need to offer some context here, which Nathan just hinted at. We all had a quiet word with HQ, and the story is that, as anybody who has had any dealings in this area knows, the issues around child protection and child safety and privacy on the internet for juniors are horrendously and rightly, quite rightly, very complicated. It's a very, very complex area. Then throw in, as Nathan was saying, a global situation with dozens of different jurisdictions And it is very, very complicated indeed. There's lots of different laws, there's lots of different regulations, there's lots of different codes. You would basically need a small army to police this, and the amount of time and people and resource that would be needed to devote to Zwift being compliant in this area is just, well, as I said, it was just too much. I mean, it's unfortunate, Shane, because kids racing on Zwift is just fantastically brilliant in so many ways, but I have to say I have a bit of sympathy with HQ here. It would just be close to an impossible task without several hundred people devoted to it full time.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of it is around the data protection laws. If you think about when GDPR came along and the impact that had on Zwift Power as a third-party source, now with the WTRL being, I guess, technically a third-party partner, and then add to that the data laws for every different country around the world. That is a phenomenal amount of work. It's just too hard to do. Now, looping back a little bit, online and children, I guess in 10 years' time, this is what I'm going to have to deal with very soon. You got to be 13 or 16 to hold a social media account site. So I think Facebook, it's 13.
In theory, yeah.
Instagram, yeah, that's exactly right. In theory, and they're big enough that they've got lawyers and everything to deal with that, I guess. But Zwift themselves, technically a smaller company, still have to adhere to all the same laws, all the same policies. Implementing this would be a monster task, as you alluded to there, Simon. So that's probably the disappointment there. But however, the devil in the detail is that it's only this certain series. It's not stopping children from jumping on Zwift and enjoying that, joining in the regular rides that tick over. There are a few limitations on children's accounts. I believe there's no chat. Hopefully, there's some issues around followers and following and things like that to protect them from the general public. But it's just, it all comes down to the data, I believe. It's just very, very difficult to do. But yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunate, but understandable, I think, is probably the take of all three of us on that. Okay, well, let's step out of the present and look back now, because we are on Zwiftcast 100. So we are going to take a trawl through history, and we're quite interested to see what Zwift has achieved since episode 1 of the Zwiftcast. Well, quite a lot, actually. We'll be hitting some of the highlights, as well as some of the lowlights, because that's what we do on the Zwiftcast. We don't hold back. One feature in episode 1 now seemed weirdly prescient.
Here's the head honcho Eric Min on female participation on the platform.
In terms of percentages, I would say that 92% are men, 8% are women, and we'd like to see that percentage of women grow. I'd like to think that we can help, support that growth.
And one Zwifter who's taking a lead in this area is Cassie Baldy. Tell me why you started the Ladies Only Facebook group.
Well, if we gather a community together of women, we can encourage each other to take part in these races and these even group rides. And then we can sort of get the process rolling of getting more women out there.
So, have those ambitions been realised? Well, let's find out.
When the Zwiftcast started, a mere 8.3% of Zwifters were female. By episode 99, that had more than doubled to 17%. Now the number of women on the platform is growing faster than the number of men, with female accounts up this year by 123%, a higher percentage than the growth in male accounts. Female participation, though, varies by country. In the USA, 20% of all Zwifters are female. In Spain, that's only 8%. What Zwift is doing is working, and there's more to come.
Well, you two, over the years, we have been fairly quick to call out Zwift when we think they've got something wrong. But on this, they've absolutely got it right. I mean, it's taken a while, but growth in this area is quite slow. But, they have doubled female participation, which is a really significant achievement, actually. Nathan, great philosophically, great for the zeitgeist, great for women getting into cycling, but it's also a really good business case. That is where growth will come from for Zwift.
I have to say that as far as talking points go, this one comes up all the time now. And I remember that episode so clearly. Like that was a major talking point in that episode. And now half of, or more than half of the commentary we do is excitement about how much women's racing is actually growing, and that we have all of these pockets and camaraderie and just awesome teams growing in a way that is almost different than the men's side of things. It brings its own flavor that just has this awesome atmosphere around it, and really takes off into real life in some ways. Examples: Aeonian, Egowatt. You've got what starts the Pros Colossus and the Rave teams. I mean, there's these women's brands that are taking off as teams because of Zwift now, and the amount of growth that you're talking about with those percentages. And it's people, a lot of times, Kristen Kolchinski being like at the top level, an example of people who never would have raced bikes or never been this into cycling, who are now completely represented and killing it in the community, and making huge splashes. And it's super exciting.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Shane, I don't think they put a foot wrong in this area. I mean, I really, really don't. You know, right from the get-go, racing was equal. You know, it was never going to be anything else. It's had equal coverage. They put as much resource, perhaps more resource, into female racing than they have into male racing. They've got this bit right. They really have.
Yep, I agree. Remembering Zwift Academy was first women only. For the first year or two, I believe. So the focus has always been there. My wife is an avid Zwifter, which is awesome to see. She's currently doing Zwift Academy. She's not in top form at the moment, but she's jumping on. She's doing the rides with other women. She's got a group of friends who, if we're in either lockdown or we can't get out for riding, jumps on. There's always a group to ride with. And one thing, and I believe I've told this story before on the Zwiftcast, is I was at the bike store, just talking shop, and I think she was about a 60-year-old lady comes in, and I'm like, respectfully grandma age. She wanted a kicker. She wanted to buy a kicker to get on Zwift. And I'm like, I sort of stood back and went, that would never have happened before. Like, we used to get these trainers to ride hard and do intervals and go out and race. That was all they were for. The game has changed. The game has completely changed. And to see this woman walk in and buy a kicker and get it all set up, I'm like, this has had there's been a massive phase shift from training indoors and doing your workouts and suffering, that's all you do in erg, through to I want the social experience. And that's what Zwift provides. And with the Zwift Academy, with the women's riding, exclusive women's rides as well. So, and I don't think we've had any guys really complain about, I've been locked out from these rides, which is good to see. Women want to be their own little group rides and things like that, not be smashed by the ego dudes. It's all there on Zwift. It's great. It's been really, really good to see. And we also get to share the hardware here too, which is handy for me. So Yvonne, my wife, is riding. She's on the Kicker bike or the Stages bike or whatever new trainer I've got. And I'm sitting there collecting data in the background as well. So it kind of helps my work that she's on there. Yeah.
And really interesting to see, I mean, and you'll never know whether this is the case or not, but anecdotally, anecdata, as I saw a really great portmanteau word I saw the other day, anecdata, I'm going to give you some here. I mean, I genuinely and definitely see more women in real life now out on bikes. There's just no doubt about it at all. And I think with the sponsorship of the new, the old Tour de France, female Tour de France, and that's going to be huge.
It actually surprised. I have to say, like, whoa, that was an all-in moment. If I were going to go to with Texas Hold'em poker, like they were like, this is it. We're just going to push our chips on the table and say this is where we're staking as far as where we want to see cycling go. That's a major statement by Zwift and what they are all about, and absolutely amazing opportunity for the women's pro peloton to put it at the top level and right next to men's racing. Absolutely loving what is going on there. And I'm excited to watch women's world Tour de France racing and see what it brings out in personalities and entertainment and narrative, because it's different. And it gets, in my opinion, sometimes a little bit more exciting, to be honest. And so you can have these new personalities coming out, with its own history and its own legacies with that. And I think Zwift have nailed it on the head with that.
Yeah. Yeah, as I say, we're pretty quick to say what we don't like, but what we do like is what Zwift has done for women's cycling. They've done an absolutely fantastic job. Numbers doubled. I mean, it's taken a little while, but numbers have doubled, and that is a really significant achievement. Okay, well, with close to 5 years and 99 episodes to cover in this big look back, we could be here all damn day, to be honest, and nobody wants that. So from here on in, let's break it down into years. 2016 was a heady time.
This was the year Zwift really began its momentous growth. Almost every month we got a big new thing. In January, the events module happened, revolutionising races and group rides. The Australian Hump Day Ride, or HDR, now a huge brand, was an early beneficiary.
I am now going to pronounce it officially as the biggest ride on Zwift.
We're up to 250 riders on a Wednesday night. We'll be up around 300 for sure by the end of winter here. It's a great bunch. It's just a fantastic ride.
In spring, Matt Hayman's storming win at Paris-Roubaix, after recuperating from injury using Zwift, made global headlines and gave the platform a huge boost.
Coming off the injury that I had and the build-up that I had and that far from ideal preparation, which turned out to maybe be the most ideal preparation, it was just a dream come true.
And also a dream for Zwift marketing. Cycling media was beginning to realise that Zwift was strong clickbait, and coverage of the launch of Watopia's epic KOM, also in spring, really saw momentum build. Then, in summer, July to be specific, a whole new world. London was unleashed, again to blanket coverage. Even us three started to sound like we were quite getting into this Zwiftcast malarkey.
The voice of Zwift, Nathan Guerra. Yo, dude.
Hey, how's it going, Simon?
And Mr. Oz, the llama himself, Shane Miller. G'day, mate.
G'day, Simon. How's things?
All this Zwiftiness was manna from heaven for the trainer companies. Wahoo had got in first with the Kicker, Tax had counterpunched with the Neo, then what the Dutch company had hoped would be a killer blow.
The Tax Flux. Everybody's been looking for the product that's going to really, really compete hard against the Kicker. It's extremely attractively priced.
Yes, we do believe it's a Kicker killer.
Although it didn't really work out that way at first, as Shane almost broke the internet.
It was unfortunate the first one broke. It was very unfortunate the second one broke. As for why and how, look, I don't know.
By September, at the bike business's German jamboree, Eurobike, which the Zwiftcast team, well, me and Shane, attended in person for the first time, special guest DC Rainmaker, as ever, nailed it.
This is the best time to buy a trainer. I think late October is going to be the best time we've ever seen in the history of trainers to buy a trainer.
Then, in December, an early Christmas present, Zwift launched on iOS, massively expanding the number of devices it would run on and making it much easier to use. 2016 was a big year.
I use the phrase heady days in that, Shane, but they really were heady days, particularly for tech. The innovation leaps that we saw were huge. That curve was very steep at that point, and it's flatter now. I think everybody will probably say that. Is that just inevitable that innovation curve is a bit flatter than it was?
Yeah, we've gotten to a certain point now where the trainers are quiet, they're accurate, they provide pretty much the same experience across the board. There have been tweaks with compatibility for through axles and different types of bikes and things like that, and a few other peripherals. But I've got to say, if the trainer difficulty was the innovation curve at the moment, it'd be down about 10%. There's not a lot happening at the moment. That's because there was so much progression early on. And things being pushed out. So I'm keen to see what's coming up. We have hints of Zwift hardware coming along. We haven't heard anything about that, though, other than they are working on something. So I'm keen to see what they're up to. Hopefully they can push that slider to at least 50%, that default spot.
Do you think, Shane, scope for innovation remains? Again, if you look at the whole history of Zwift, we used to stare at the garage wall. And then there was a great leap forward where we didn't stare at the garage wall and we could ride with people from all over the world. There was like this massive leap forward. And then really the changes we've seen beyond that have been incremental, to be honest. There's not been another revolution. Do you think the trainer pattern and the trainer pattern of innovation is going to be the same as that? There was this great leap forward when we first got smart trainers, and since then they've just got a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. Is there any big scope for innovation remaining with trainer companies?
On the hardware side of things, I don't think so. I really don't, because really cycling is all about a pedal comes up and you push it down. And when you do that, the other pedal comes up and then you just push that one down. Cycling's very simple. They've gotten to a point now where training indoors, sure, there are rocker plates, there's steering, which could innovate. There's a lot of different areas they could innovate and change the game, but that's going to move at a glacial pace because we need new hardware for that. So, and other accessories and compatible hardware, and to change what we've already invested in. So hardware-wise, I don't hold out a lot of hope for anything wow coming along. But the software-wise, that's almost unlimited. It really is. And we've gotten little snippets of what could be coming, clubs and things like that, sort of, auto-categorization, all those sort of things. They're also moving quite slow. Unfortunately, on the hardware side of things, until we see a complete game changer, we need an Apple to come along with an iPhone. That kind of change. Can Zwift do that in hardware? I hope so. I don't think so, but we'll see. We'll see what they can do.
I mean, it may be that the iPhone moment has just already happened, and we get iPhone 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and that's how the progression will happen with this technology. Now, moving to the software side, which is what group riding really is, it's all about manipulation of pixels. Nathan, do you think that promise has been, if you look back to 2016, we got so excited about the new way that we could ride with each other. Do you think that promise has been delivered upon? In some ways, you've got to say it has, because we were having a conversation offline about this. Some of the competitors have introduced some new features recently. One of them in particular, they've introduced a whole set of new features, but none of it is social. And the whole thing about Zwift, the whole essence of Zwift's success, if you like, is social, and the heart of the social thing is group riding. So that promise that was just beginning to start in 2016, Nathan, do you think that has been delivered upon?
Yeah, and I would say that because Zwift has focused on supporting the cultures and subcultures well, that whether or not the software has kept up isn't what is the sale point. I know of a ton of different teams and brands of and essentially clubs that just exist in Zwift at this point from all over the world, all over the different countries that identify with either countries, a cause. The amount of good causes, the amount of clubs that are running group rides, the amount of coaches that are coaching. Zwift have done a really good job of focusing on their people and connecting their people to create their riding spaces in Zwift really, really well. And that's also where the racing community has come out of as well, where they were supporting these event organizers. I would say, though, that on the racing side of things and esports side of things, without WTRL coming along, I don't think we would be where we are. I just got to say that. Have something like what WTRL has done to create a structured, tiered sport-like system. I'd have to say what they've taken on is at the level of what a national federation have done, and maybe better than some national federations out there. To be honest, absolutely amazing job.
That's a really good example, isn't it, of what Zwift has enabled, which is like an alternative ecosystem for cycling. That they really have enabled this network or mesh of brand new organizations, all devoted to one thing, which is getting people cycling together, and it just happens to be virtual. So I think we can give them a bit of a thumbs up on have they delivered on the social promises that they made to the consumer. I really think they have, actually, and unless rivals or competitors can do something similar, I think they're doomed, to be honest. Anyway, let's spin onwards to 2017, and probably even now, what remains Zwift's biggest crisis, the dreaded price rise. rise.
2017 was all about fire, racing and rage. It started well enough with the Zwiftcast getting an updated look and new music. But really, the year was dominated by the price rise. More on that in a moment. On the way there, we got a volcano.
I'm really excited about it, and I think it's a great course for racing so far.
It's a good 5-minute circuit, which is my kind of interval.
Zwift ran its first ever e-fondo, an homage to the excellent Maratona del Dolomiti IRL Sportive, and CVR staged the first large-scale IRL e-racing event on Zwift, live in Las Vegas.
Yo, will the llama get their line? Cephalon's going. Who's it going to be? It's so close. Shane Miller with 10 watts per kilogram. 1 second is the difference. Oh my.
First time the three Zwiftcasters actually met in the flesh.
We're in Las Vegas where Shane was competing, and that's a story which we will be exploring because it's quite a story. And Nathan was commentating with just a little bit of help from myself.
But 2017 is maybe going to be best remembered in the history of Zwift for the price rise. Hiking the sub from $10 a month to $15 provoked uproar in the community. A regular in the Zwift venting area, John H. Hampton, rather hilariously sent me a video of him reacting to the fire and fury in the Zwift riders group.
No one is forcing you to pay it. Don't like it. Don't use it. View. Yeah, that's essentially the view of Zwift riders. Was that English? What? I love my Zwift and I want to be a long-term customer. Don't mess it up, Eric. More servers. Okay, let's see. Where's the outrage? Outrage. 66% increase hopefully means it will work 66% more often. Seems reasonable. Updates currently are few and far between. Simon, that sounds like more podcasts. That's on you. Oh, this is great. This is perfect. I have been looking for this comment. I have absolutely no idea how computers work comment. This guy wants Zwift to fix his trainer that he bought 100 years ago before he'll pay another dime. I feel there needs to be more transparency with your price increase. How much more transparency do you need? It's $15 now. That was pretty clear. Zwift team, how many subscribes do you currently have? 400,000, replies Gunter G. Gullerts. Quote Eric Min, last Zwiftcast? What's a Zwiftcast? Again, arbitrary. It's again arbitrary. We need like a buzzer, like the arbitrary buzzer. 25% would be okay, but over 62% of the other new companies rolling out alternatives must be rubbing their hands together. Yes, all of them. Anyway, I'm bored now, so I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.
It made me roar with laughter when I first saw it, and it's raised a few titters watching it again. I'd say that was very funny from John. A couple of follow-ups on that, I think, for us, actually, just in reflective mode. Price and competitors, I think, are the two obvious ones. So 4 years ago, the price went up. As we just heard, it got quite the reaction. I mean, it's now, I guess it's a kind of mid-price sub. People are very sensitive about subscription prices. There's some really weird psychology going on there. But do you see subs staying pretty much where they are now, Nathan? I mean, it seems to, I mean, that was 4 whole years ago, and there's not been a hint of a price increase since. I can't see it happening in the near future, can you?
You know, across all subscriptions, I think that mark, like I just think across most subs that are out there, regardless of cycling or what you're in, that 15-ish a month seems kind of where you go for the default basic. You want some extras or something, you want to be able to do this or want to be doing this extra, but I think that between 12 and 15 a month is what people are comfortable with, USD, at this point in the world when you're talking pretty much what every single service out there online is trying to go toward is the subscription fee. So yeah, I think so. I think Zwift will follow the market of what people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
You know, so if if my Netflix goes up, Zwift's going to go, maybe we can go up. So I think that is more of a global conversation about what people are comfortable with what they're receiving digitally for their services. And we'll see when those price rises start coming. And as soon as I've seen other services, I think Zwift will follow suit rather than the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll never not go up. Nothing ever stays the same, particularly subscription prices. But I don't see a big hike coming up. I mean, arguably, Shane, they delayed. I mean, we had this debate at the time, didn't we? They delayed too long. The first sub, whatever it was, $9.98, it was too cheap. It was just too cheap, and they at some point had to raise it. It was always going to be an uncomfortable moment, and they probably just delayed too long in doing it. I think on reflection, that still remains the case, doesn't it?
Yeah, I just remember all the fights and the battles and the complaints that no one even talks about anymore. It was all just water under the bridge, wasn't it? But I just hope, I don't want to see them go to a structured or a tiered model, because those things get really complex. Here in Australia, our mobile phone plans or our cell phone plans went crazy. I think our main cell phone provider, Telstra here, had something like 400 different plans you could choose from. If you looked at different phones and it was just too much. So I don't want to see them offer, say, Zwift HD, or maybe even come in with, say, Zwift Potato for the lower end units. So I don't want to see them differentiate that at all. It's nice that it is just one single figure. And I don't want to see them add something like, it's $2 to enter a race or something like that, because that becomes like outdoors. And that, again, inevitably leads to, if I'm not getting something out of it, I'm not going to do it. So there's a beauty in just one single price, regardless of what that is, to pay. I just don't want the tiered levels. So that's what concerns me. We'll see what the market does.
Yeah, well, we don't want any more complication in our lives than is strictly necessary, that's for sure. Just moving on to competitors, Shane. I mean, there were very few really credible competitors. There were competitors, but there were no threats, I think is probably the right word to Zwift in 2017. As we sit here now in 2021, there are competitors, but there are still no threats.
It's a really interesting one, and the excuses people come up for why there's no competition. One that I'll lean on at the moment is people saying, "Well, no, they don't have the money that Zwift has. They don't have the marketing that Zwift has." Sure, that's true now, but remembering for the first year or two, Zwift didn't advertise. They just simply had a beta product that was so different at the time. They weren't the first to do 3D riding, or even the social side of things. They just did it in an Apple / Google easy way to do. To log in and just have it work. So it's not that. I don't think it's that. There is room for more than one. There's room for more than two or three, but they really have to do their own unique thing, be really good at racing, be it really good at the social side of things. And I've had a few discussions in recent times. Like Zwift itself, it's driven by the social experience. And I think, Simon, you've discussed that before. People don't want to watch. The wall doesn't change. If you continue to ride looking at the wall is always the wall in front of you. But a Zwift ride will change every few seconds depending on who's on there. If it's your friend, Eric Min may join your ride. Well, I'm staying in here for a couple. Let's get a thumbs up from Eric Min. Let's give him one. The thing totally changes. There's opportunity for other platforms to do this. They just really need to be able to come up with an idea that is either unique, exciting, innovative, and roll with it and just really go all in. Competing with Zwift is going to be a challenge. They've got, I mean, the funds they've raised is just phenomenal in this space. There's still room the traction, there's a few exciting things happening.
Yeah, the traction.
Well, it comes down to timing as well. Yeah, and on that, and again, another topic as we're reminiscing of previous podcasts. I think I've spoken about this before. Zwift is the iPod. It came along at the right time where solid state was getting cheaper. Not Zwift, but iPods came along when solid state was getting cheaper. Music licensing was changing. The audio compression and the processing power to listen to that music with these small devices really came along at the right time. So the iPod did really, really well. Zwift is about the same. It sort of combined all this difficult technology, and it's still difficult. Don't get me wrong on that one. Long way to go. They simplified it to give that the social experience. And I think that's what people remember. They don't remember jumping on and hooking up their Kicker or their Neo or their Doretto. They don't remember, they remember riding with Jens Voigt. They remember riding with Tim Searle. They remember riding with all these people. So it's that experience. So it's the challenge of these competitors to bring in a new experience or bring in an experience that people want. Maybe one we've never thought of before. We'll see. Yeah. It's interesting times. Software, you can do anything. I can't wait to see what these other companies try.
Yeah. Well, I think all three of us are on the same page here, really, which is that competition is good. We would like as much competition as possible for Zwift, and Zwift themselves say that. I'm not sure how much they believe it, but they certainly say it. But the thing is, for competition to be successful, it can't just be a copy. Don't be copycats, boys. You need to think of something very different.
Yes, there is.
And there was an example of that. I don't want to go into it too much here, but there's been no world's course from Zwift this year for, I don't know, maybe the deal with the US UCI has expired and they just had a pause year. I don't know. Don't really know why that didn't happen. And a competitor did something that was kind of like the Worlds, but it wasn't like the Worlds because they couldn't use the name the Worlds because they didn't have a deal with the UCI. So they tried to out Zwift, but did it in a not really particularly convincing way. And that for me is, that's just not the way that competition is going to succeed. Anyway, we will see. If we're still here another 100 episodes later, God help us all, including the listeners. If we're still here in another 100 episodes, well, yeah, exactly. That too.
The Blue Riders gave up their sub. The Blue Riders are now spotted on Be Cool. What happened there? They didn't like the price rise.
Yeah. Try to be original, people. That's how things get successful.
Make them yellow.
Anyway, we'll see. We will see. We'll be very interesting to look back in another 100 episodes if we ever get that far to see where the competition lies then. Okay, shall we have a look at what happened in Zwift in 2018? I see no reason why we shouldn't.
By 2018, the Zwiftcast had added a video version. We had a few laughs and we discussed some very important things.
The only cheese, and let me tell you, Nathan, the only cheese I've ever seen in America is it's either in a tube or in a squirty thing. I'm not saying
you are coming to Wisconsin, okay?
Cheese aside, guessing peak Zwift had now become a thing, and we'd moved up from the 800 simultaneous users predicted by Eric Min in Zwiftcast episode 1.
I'll go 8888.
Oh, that's easy to remember.
9,567.
Oh, one of us has got to go over 10,000, so I'm going for 10,010.
In the end, it dropped a little short of 10k, but with Zwift Run, the company had its eyes on more growth when game creator John Mayfield made a rare public appearance for the official launch in February.
When it's not just cycling, it's also running, now you start thinking, well, what else can it be? It's a whole fitness platform now.
Zwift Run could be bigger than Zwift Ride. I think that's what we call it now, Run and Ride. Do you believe that?
No.
In March, senior game artist Tony Yaruga took us behind the scenes to show how Zwift's newest and biggest climb, the Alpe du Zwift, was created.
We had to model out terrain to kind of cover up the issues that the road was causing. This is one of the switchbacks, one of our debug modes. We use it to kind of just see how dense the polygons are in areas, mostly areas with foliage.
And more behind-the-scenes stuff when we found out how Nathan does what he does.
I was at Nathan's house/studio. So Nathan, talk me through Nathan Central.
Oh my goodness, Nathan Central. Part of the reason that I'm here 2 hours before a broadcast is troubleshooting. Like half of it is troubleshooting. And you wouldn't believe the kinds of things that come up. Looks like I had Windows updates on everything.
Hello and welcome to Bespoke in London for the finals of the Kiss Crit Series Europe.
In April 2018, Zwift finally took the plunge and staged its own live e-racing events in London and LA, with Kiss helping out.
Our version of esports has huge potential.
Is this the future?
Yeah, this event is amazing.
G'day, Shane Miller. How are
The future for the Zwiftcast was audio, not video. Episode 49 was our last video ep. We just didn't get enough subscribers to justify it. The future was looking more and more race-shaped for Zwift. In July, a high-profile sponsorship of the Tour de France and the launch of the Fun is Fast campaign. The future of indoor cycling looked to belong to Tax, with their Tax bike unveiled at Eurobike.
Final injection molding molds are ready 3rd or 4th week of August, and then we're all set to start producing.
But it was to suffer terrible delays making it to consumers. Late summer and early autumn saw a double whammy of new courses from Zwift, with a climb course modelled on the Innsbruck World Circuit of that year, and then a new move, a futuristic map based around New York. We were a little underwhelmed by New York City.
The new roads, the new visuals are fantastic. I mean, I'll take the other route with this one. To me, it's the same riding experience. It's the same game experience. And it's the same since about 4 years ago. Nothing's really changed in that respect of what we're doing on the bike. I think the next move from Zwift has to be a reinvention. We need a revolution. We need something to change, because just new roads, it's nice and shiny for now, but are we still going to be talking about it next week?
In December, the now traditional Christmas present from Zwift, we finally got new levels. The top one progressed from level 25 to level 50.
Well, Shane, there's nothing quite as gratifying as looking back, re-examining a snap verdict and being found to be 100% correct. Is running going to work, Shane Miller? We asked at the New York launch of running. No, said Shane. And I think you're kind of right, aren't you? Probably for kind of lots of complicated reasons.
There's a brave response there. I had to get out of the country pretty quick. I was at the actual launch of that, where they spent quite a bit of money on that launch, and I'm like, yeah, nah. Look, it's cycling and running. Whilst they're two sports where you're moving, very different, very, very different. And coming back to the hardware side of things, even more different, well, a lot more different. With running, you just put a pair of shoes on and go. You can run in almost any weather. You put a hat on if it's raining and go. Riding, no, if it's raining, I don't go outside. There's no interactivity with the hardware too. So you'll get overtaken by a runner going up the Epic KOM, because they subscribe to the Flat Earth Society. Because if you go for a run, you don't want to go running up a hill, a virtual hill, and only have it record 1 kilometer, whereas in fact you've ridden at a certain pace or a certain on your treadmill, which is two very different things. So there's technical reasons why they're not the same. They're still utilizing running though, so which is a good thing. The running track has been introduced. And we still see quite a few people running out there, but I mean, at the core of the product, what it was all about was all cycling. So, and that's where my heart lies too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the case then. So the year we just looked back to, and I think it remains the case now. Partly, I think that's a policy decision by Zwift. They've realised that, what really works is cycling, and what works a little bit less well is running. And after all, the pandemic thing, which we're going to get into later, they just decided to focus their resources more on cycling. And it's probably not the worst decision in the world. Nathan, that was the year 2018 that Zwift entered e-racing under their own control. I think we can call that a qualified success, actually. I think they have made a pretty good fist of what they do under the Zwift banner. Having said that, I mean, it's very good for marketing, really good for marketing. I'm not totally convinced by the pro product, I have to say. I can see why it works for them, and what they've done is, the broadcasts are getting better and better, and it looks increasingly more professional. But I still think the future for Zwift racing, the biggest future for Zwift racing, is the community-based stuff. And I think I know what you're going to say in response to that.
I'll just read the image I got from Martin, from the director of WTR, right before we went live. 1,800 teams, 10,000 Zwift racers, 140 nationalities, 136 divisions across 17 leagues, 55 Zwift events, 136 races, and 6 hours of Zwift Community Live broadcasts, 290,000 kilometers in one race. Wow. So I would just have to say that, yes, I think esport is super successful. I think, like every other esport that we have out there right now, there are far and few. I would say Dota. Like, really, as far as like having a successfully, and even there, like how much those pros get paid and what they feel like they're a part of. It's not an NFL. I wouldn't call it, a Premier League. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? And so yes, even in other esports, it's still a marketing tool at the publisher level that gets more people hyped up to go and do the community events and be a part of the ranked or the going up the ranks to be like, I'm part of the 1% that can get the best headshots in Apex or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think that is common actually across esports. It's not just a Zwift thing about where esports is landing on the pro side of things. So I think the cool thing is that Zwift seems to kind of be in the same arena now though. You know what I mean? Like before we were trying to figure out if they even could jump into the arena of what esports and where esports was landing culturally as a sport. And now they're kind of catching up and have a similar model that what we see to the other esports.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think those stats that you just quoted, really, I mean, I'm sure they land on receptive ears at Zwift HQ as well. But those stats, for me, tell the story. The future, and what should be the future for e-racing, esports on Zwift has to be community based. I strongly believe that.
Can I just say that isn't one race? That's weekly.
Yeah.
That's what other event in the world do you have that kind of participation weekly?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's fantastic, an amazing achievement. Shane, just quickly on this, because it's a bit of a hobby horse of yours. Actually, I'm sure listeners have heard it once, more than once, but I think they could probably stand to hear it again. I mean, that year, we got lots of new courses, but we were quite. Actually, that was the episode that we recorded in my car. I remember it well, actually. But we were a little bit underwhelmed by New York, and your beef was it's just another new course. What we want is more features, not just new courses. Yeah. And I think we're still in the same place, aren't we?
When I get a new component for the bike, I get a new bike, a new set of wheels, a new bike computer, something comes along that changes my experience on the bike. I want to go out and ride. It changes what I'm up to. The Varia radar, again, I'll keep banging on about that. It changes the experience for the better. I just want to see more of those innovations. New roads are great. They give us some route badges to go and achieve, but they're the same route badges we've gotten for the last 75 route badges that we've got. I don't know. I don't have answers for this, but I just want more incentive to jump on it and go. I think workout mode could really be changed up. Workout mode hasn't changed for 5 or so years now. Why can't we have workout mode that gives us a sim gradient hill for, say, 6% for 5 minutes, and it's auto-generated, and then when we get to the top, it does something different? Just give us some gamification, change the game, think outside of the box, give us a reason to go, oh, wow, Zwift did this? How about that? Get some more eyes over to what Zwift have invented. Maybe even fail more. Don't fail with existing things that work and then the next update they fail. Fail with new innovations like the fence. Put a different fence there and fail with that and then bring it back. I'll come up with an idea one day, maybe in episode 101. I'll have some few ideas. But rather than just keep doing the same thing, the cookie cutter approach works with new worlds. Everyone loves new worlds. They do. They added 4 little tiny roads to Watopia. Wow. How huge was that? I'm jumping ahead in the timeline here, actually. That was only this year. That was amazing. Little things like that. Where's gravel riding? Come on now. We've all got gravel bikes. Why can't we have some virtual gravel?
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to change the experience.
Yeah. No, well, I think it's been made a number of times before, but it does remain an excellent point. However, the thing is, now, and we're going to get into this in a moment or so. Zwift is a mainstream product now, and what does the mainstream? What do the crowds love? And the crowds love new roads. They love new roads. So we may end up. I think we're right, but I think we may still be howling at the moon in the wilderness for a little while longer at this one. Okay, let's move on because there's still quite a lot to cover. I hope you're not getting bored with this yet. Actually, I think the kind of look back thing's really interesting, but I would say that. Anyway, let's go back to 2019.
January 2019 was action-packed as the long-awaited and much-requested Guest World or World Switching feature was released. to acclaim from the Zwiftcasters and friends. Watopia is available the whole time. The guest world selected by Zwift HQ is on rotation.
It has been received very well. People are liking it. I think people are a big fan of Watopia.
I think the community overall is very happy with the change. It's pretty hard to find anything negative to say about it, really.
A new peak Zwift added to the excitement. It was a little over 13,000 concurrent Zwifters. Nathan, they're going to be happy with that, I think. It's about a 50% increase.
Looks really good on paper. And then again, I made a prediction of 15,000. It didn't happen.
And the inaugural Tour de Zwift began a new tradition on the platform. To this day, the biggest and best mass participation event on Zwift. In February, out of the blue, Garmin buys tax for a rumoured €170 million. This is a big deal, but what might it mean for Zwift and Zwifters? March saw the Fence, a device to help shepherd group rides. 2.5 years on, the Fence is still kind of work in progress. The Desert extension in April made time trialists and triathletes as happy as Larry.
I like the scenery. This is some great scenery because it's so different from anything we've seen before.
It's flat, it's hot, it's pretty long. Yeah, I love it. And our new friend Dinosaur, whose name is Sinclair, I believe.
He doesn't do much, does he?
No, he's just a bit boring. I mean, maybe one day he'll bend down and eat someone off the front of the group.
More dinosaurs stalked the next new extension, the lush and verdant Titans Grove, which landed in August. A big moment for me in September as my hometown of Harrogate got Zwiftified. My objectivity must be suspended for this episode, but I have to say, I think as a replication of the Harrogate I know extremely well, it's absolutely bang on. I mean, the architecture in the Duchy Estate section is just so close to reality. I mean, I've actually got a friend who lives around there, and I can spot his house. In December, Crit City joined Bologna, which had been added in May as a second event-only course. With the Desert, Titans Grove, Yorkshire, plus the event-only courses, then in December a running track, knowingly called Mayfield, released, Zwift's artists had a very, very busy 2019.
It was busy. I mean, so much new tarmac as we were just harping on about. And dinosaurs. We finally got dinosaurs. And wheel switching we got in 2019. Was it only 2019? It feels like we've had it for much longer. I guess the reflective point to consider on that, on world switching, is should it now just be completely unrestricted? I think, those old days worries of Zwifting in a lonely place because nobody chose one of 5 worlds available as an option at any one time. I think those worries are dead now, Shane, don't you?
Yep, long gone. There's somebody Zwifting on every course at any time if you use the World Hacks tool. So there's always somebody there. So there's no reason. The calendar that comes out every month with its Fruit Loop rainbow-coloured dots that you've got to do some hieroglyphics and try and... Too hard. Trying to explain that to a newbie, like, oh no, it's only that new course you found out about with the new marketing campaign that went out, the new roads. Yeah, you
not there anymore.
Thursday. You got to wait till next Thursday to be able to do it. Too confusing. Yeah, get rid of that. I'd almost go the flip side. We want privacy now. I want the ability to go and ride that just by myself. We need here's all the worlds, but do you want to ride just by yourself? Sure, click this button here and away you go. That'd be great.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. I mean, why not Zwift? Just do it. Just do it. The Fence, Nathan, that launched in 2019. Still not really working very well, to be honest. Same applies to clubs, I'm afraid, but there were reasons for that. And other new initiatives. Remember, what the hell was it? Battery boost or something? It never really
boost
took
mode.
Off that, did it?
Boost mode.
Yeah, never really took off. I mean, again, we were talking about this a few minutes ago, and I think Shane made the point. Actually, why not try a bit more? Why not be not afraid to fail with some experimentation, Zwift? And I think battery boost probably was a bit of a fail, to be honest. It probably just comes down to a resource issue. But are they, Nathan, too afraid to fail?
Yes. But I would say that the way that they're backing up and going to the most basic getting excellent is a good thing. So Pack Diamonds 3.0 is backing up and going, is everything working as well as it possibly, I mean, being just completely a race machine ready to go, right? My bike is clean, lubed up, every setting is where it needs to be. I'm about to get out on course. That's where they need to be before moving ahead, I think. And I think that they are making sure that all the little, I wouldn't say bugs, I would say all the functionality at the most basic riding level, as well as game level and how it is producing the images in front of you in order for the best interactivity. Why add other interactivity before that is solid? So I think, see what Pack Dynamics 3.0 does and then go forward from there. I would love to see, obviously a lot more experimentation and gamifications and stuff like that. But it just seems like, where are you going to put the resources? That seems to always be the conversation here. And it looks like it's going toward back it up a little bit. We got a little ahead of ourselves. There's other things that we could do that are way simpler. I don't know about simpler as far as technically achieving them, but way simpler in ideation and like what it is that you're accomplishing and the idea of it. And then go forward with something more complicated.
Yeah. Maybe they're not offered to fail. Maybe they just don't have enough people to do all the things that they want to do. And lots of companies are in that position. And the pandemic changed all of that, which brings us on to our last look back for this big Zwiftcast 100 episode. And strangely enough, we come right up to date with 2020. And this is quite short. And I was going to say painful. I don't think it was painful, but hey, 2020 was quite a year. Let's take a look at it.
The year started normally enough. The Zwiftcasters were excited about another peak Zwift in late January, and Shane pessimistically, we all thought, went with 16,666. The lowest was the closest. Peak Zwift came in at 16,231. That's a 24% increase on last year's peak Zwift, a respectable, if not stellar, increase from the previous year's 13,500. Then, a few weeks later, you know what hit, and Zwift went crazy. And it went crazy fast. By early April, only 3 weeks or so after the pandemic proper, almost 35,000 users were on the platform at one time. With millions confined to home, the whole digital fitness space exploded. Zwift's subscriber growth would top out in 2020 at a 240% increase. Combined with all the staffers at HQ suddenly working from home, the explosive growth put enormous strains on the company. That pressure then built to even greater levels when a virtual version of the postponed real-life Tour de France was announced. New courses and a gigantic logistical effort to provide never-before-seen broadcast coverage meant mass redeployment of resources, and those two things, the virtual tour and coping with explosive growth, consumed the company. Just about everything else went on hold. The VTDF was a great success. Zwift reaped huge benefits. 2020 was the year Zwift went mainstream, and the company mindset changed. Suddenly, it was all about the newbies.
It was really about making sure that the new customers trying Zwift for the first time were having the best experience.
Like a lot of changes wrought by the pandemic, that change has gone from temporary to seemingly permanent, at least for the foreseeable future. The right decision? Well, let's look at the numbers. In January 2021, it sure seemed like the noobs had stuck around. Zwift hit 46,375 concurrent users. Let's not forget, in January 2019, only 2 years earlier, it had been a little over 13,000. Explosive growth, big changes. The Zwiftcast episode 100 does not reflect the Zwift of episode 1 of the Zwiftcast.
And of course, that's completely inevitable and, in fact, desirable. If Zwift had not changed from episode 1 to episode 100, we will be asking a great many questions, I think. But we like to get nostalgic. We liked it when we had direct one-to-one relationships with the very few people who worked at HQ. We liked Jarvis. We even liked racing when we kind of rolled up to a bridge and someone would type, go, 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 go. But change is good. You know, if it wasn't, we'd all still be in our garages staring at a blank wall and wondering where our will to live had been gone. It's been quite the journey, this one, Shane, 100 episodes of the Zwiftcast. Are you still on board the Zwift train?
I'm still here, aren't I? I've seen the background here. It's still, actually, I've got pictures of llamas on the background there, but it's still running Zwift every single day. It's still my platform of choice for the llama lab test for testing hardware. Yep, I'm still around. I just want to see the progression equal that of what it was when we first found out what Zwift was, and the first few years where it was just all this new excitement being built around it, and the community just organically growing itself and coming together to help each other out and build little teams and communities and other groups and things like that. There was huge hype around it. Inevitably, it's grown so big now that it's a different interaction with the community. But I just want to see that, you know, back at, again, to flash back to where we were with new things coming along all the time. That was heaps of fun. I really like that. That just kept the energy alive. Now there's a bit of a downturn in the hardware side of things. I just want to see that continue on the software side of things, and Zwift are in a position to do that. Make that pairing process easier. Make those updates every month exciting. They used to be one of my most watched videos every month. Here's what's new. Here's all the new things. It hasn't quite gone that smoothly in the last few months. I just want them just you know, reverse back, give us some awesome things, roll out pack dynamics. Let's just get it done. Let's just put it in October's update. Let's just do that. We'll like that. But I'm still here.
Yeah, and we're glad you are. Now, Nathan, as we start another winter on Zwift, it will be our 5th, 6th, 7th, maybe even for some people. Particularly someone with user number 10. I've waited right until the end of this episode. That little bomb. But anyway, I mean, do you still look forward to the indoor season, Nathan? Hundreds of thousands of miles under your belt now?
Now more so than ever, actually.
Wow.
So, which is interesting. There were a couple of years of development in the racing scene where you didn't have an exact aim. You kind of had these little pockets and you weren't sure what was going to happen with them. And actually, Reese from Canyon's marketing, who runs the Canyon team, you know, is the director there. I heard him on a podcast recently. He said the same thing, that it's really found its place for what to aim at, where you should aim with the racing. And I get excited about coming into indoor season now because I can rank up. I can look at where to rank up. I know other people are thinking about that too. I know if I jump into races with these people in these specific races, I can find a purpose in my Zwift racing. Whereas, you know, if people put events on their schedule going into their summer season or whatever it is, they're for mountain biking, they're TTing, they're track, cyclocross, and they think about some sort of goal to accomplish. Well, now I have a place to shoot those goals at. And I see that in the community as well. Athletes I coach, as far as racing goes, I'm actually more excited about getting into the Zwift racing season now than I've ever been before, because I have things to chase in that racing in a meaningful way, and not just have a series that doesn't seem like it really attaches to anything in a bigger picture. So interesting enough, this is the most excited I've ever been about myself getting involved in racing, you know, apart from broadcast and commentating and all that other stuff. That definitely is a shift that I've noticed in my own motivations for Zwifting now.
Well, that's really, really good to hear. And you are in great shape at the moment, which massively helps. You know, that really does help in looking forward to the new season. Okay. That's it, boys. We have managed to get to 100 episodes. It must be nearly getting towards 3 a.m. with you now, Nathan, so I think it really is about time we allowed you to go. So last question for you both. I just asked you whether, you know, you were still on board the Zwift train, whether you're looking forward to the new season. Do you still enjoy the Zwiftcast? When my script drops in your inbox, Shane, do you think, oh, God, Here we go again. Or do you still get a little bit excited about doing it? We get quite worthy and a bit dull sometimes, and we go on a bit, I think, sometimes. But we still have a bit of a laugh about things, I think. Do you still enjoy it? Have you got the appetite? Could you go another? I'm not going to ask you to commit to 100 episodes. Could you go another 20 or 30 episodes before you get bored with all this?
I like catching up with you guys. You guys are my friends, and hopefully that comes across. So when a new Zwiftcast like things come through, it's like, okay, what are we talking about this week? Okay, do I do my homework on this? This week I didn't do any homework whatsoever. I thought it's video, we'll get it done. If it's talking about things we've already spoken about, that's easy for me. I usually do a little bit of homework, and I really enjoy it. Most of my work is done solo, so it's a great catch up. The only thing that gets me a bit nervous is when I stumble my words, or I say the wrong thing, or I come out with something that sounds stupid to me. Hopefully it sounds okay when it's played back. And you do a great job with the editing, Simon. I think I've kept my 4-letter words almost. Like I don't think I've ever sworn on this. You probably cut them out if I have anyway. A lot of my outtakes on the YouTube stuff is not for publication ever. They're gone. I'm an Aussie after all. I really enjoy it, guys, because you guys are. I mean, we've got so much history, and we can always refer back to. Hey, remember Vegas? How good was that? What a benchmark Vegas was for CVR racing, and we agree, and then we move on with our conversation. It's great. No, I enjoy these. I do them weekly. We were doing these weekly during the pandemic when it really hit hard, but Simon, I do understand the work that goes into these. It is absolutely huge, especially this one. And as I keep talking, it's going to take you even longer to edit this, so I'll just keep rambling on. And we do appreciate, Simon, the work that you put in. It's easy for us to come in as technically as guests, I guess, or as a participant, or as a panelist, I think it's probably the better word. But all the hard work, Simon, it's all hats off to you as well. 100 episodes. That's a lot of work behind the scenes. It's I'm around for
it is,
I'm on.
Yeah. Well, I think you just signed another contract, Nathan. I think the thing I've missed, Nathan, it's just like the number one obvious thing to say in the very difficult times we've just lived through over the past 18 months or so. The thing I missed has not been able to do it in real life. The three of us actually meeting, and we've done that. I think we managed 5, 6, 7, 8 times. We've probably managed to do that. Man, they are better episodes.
Yeah, and I want when you talk about
reading off each other is easy.
I wanted to say there about meeting in real life also kind of piggybacks on why I think the Zwiftcast is so awesome. Is that there's a lot of history between all of us. I don't think people understand, like, we don't just show up and have a discussion about Zwift. We have friendships here that have seen all of us through life in a lot of different ways. There's some really strong connections here that are life-changing. And I just want to say are super, super appreciated. And to the public, like, I don't know, doing 100 episodes like this together and living in this virtual space. I remember at the offsite, was it 2017? I said to all of the Zwift in front of them when we did a Zwiftcast there in front of them, actually, kind of like, and in front of the whole company. And I said, I don't know if you understand how much you are connecting people, right? I said, I don't think you get how much, like, well, I don't know if I said it, I don't think you guys get, but I was trying to give this like inspiration of like, you're really connecting people through the bike in this virtual space with their own little communities that have a narrative of what their story is, what their life story is with their fitness. And we've connected stories and narratives now that are absolutely awesome. And that's what brings me back to the Zwiftcast and makes me enjoy it. Our pre-production is a catch up about life. And then that
real friendships,
something we're passionate about. Real friendships, exactly.
Real friendships are formed. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm getting all sappy here, but it's definitely what brings me back to the Zwiftcast. It's and obviously Zwift, and we enjoy the platform and all of that. And it's the personalities here that then talk about this awesome virtual world that all gets us in shape. So
yeah. You pressed the anti-sappy button before I was just about to hit it hard, actually. We were going way too sappy there. But all of it is true, actually. I mean, real friendships have formed. I think we all do still enjoy it. And, I think it's probably useful for listeners to know that we do talk about stuff, actually, Zwift stuff and live stuff in between episodes. And I think that does inform the episodes when we come to record them. Okay, definitely enough sappiness. Thank you very much, boys, not only for this episode, but for all your hard work. I know you don't always do your homework, Shane, but mostly you do, actually. Thank you. And Nathan, you always do your homework. Thanks very much indeed for this, for the last 99 episodes. And here's to, I'm not going to commit to another 100. Here's to another few more. Thank you very much, boys, and goodbye.